Hello, good afternoon, and welcome to the Squared Circle Wrestling Podcast. And I'm bringing you what is now known as TSC Extra. We'll be rounding up every week all the latest from WWE, AEW, Impact, and New Japan, and the latest news that's been doing the rounds every week. And this is separate from our usual shows that I do with my co-host Andy Evans. We will be back next Tuesday at 7 p.m. live as we plan to. So we hope that you will join us then. So I hope everyone's having a wonderful weekend. Remember, we want to hear from you. If you've got any opinions, thoughts on what's gone down in any of the promotions that we're about to mention, we want to hear from you. And we will air your opinions and thoughts and comments as long as they're clean and PC on our live show on Tuesday. So if you want to get in touch with us, there's a number of ways, as always, that you can do so. You can get in touch with us on WhatsApp for your very own A Little Bit of the Bubbly on 077 243 12752. That's 077 243 12752. You can obviously leave a comment on our YouTube channel, which you might be watching this live right now. Just go youtube.com/TSC Wrestling Podcast and find us and give us a like, a follow, a subscribe, should I say, on that platform as well. If Facebook's your thing, you can catch us live on our official Facebook page. Just go to facebook.com and just search for the Squared Circle Podcast. You will catch us on there as well. You can catch us on Instagram if Insta's your thing. Just find us on there on TSC Wrestling Podcast, or even Twitter, the old-fashioned way, on Twitter, on twitter.com/wrestling TSC, or the most normal way of getting in contact with us, if you wish to, is to email us at squaredcirclepodcast2022@gmail.com. There we go. No excuses. There's plenty of ways to get in touch with us. So, what has been going? It's been just coming up a week since WrestleMania weekend. A lot has been doing the rounds. There's a lot of controversial news headlines that have been coming out, especially around WWE owner, or should I say, soon to be former owner, Vince McMahon, and his new involvement in the company, and the dreaded potential situation of him maybe being back taking over creative, and we'll get into that a little bit when we discuss Raw, because myself and thousands and maybe even millions of WWE fans all over the world not happy with how Raw was the night after Mania, because let's face it, Raw after Mania has been going down as history as being the most anticipated episode of Raw every single year. Always full of surprises. We have debuts, we have returns, we sometimes even have championship changes. Some groundbreaking historical moments usually happen on the Raw after Mania, and that's not been the case the last few years, really. So why is that? Why is that? If you think you have any idea why you think that is, let us know. Because I always say, if it's not broken, don't fix it. And it's now broken, so it needs fixing. So without further ado, we're going to get into some of the other latest news. We're going to talk sticking with WWE. As you may have seen, the WWE Hall of Famer Rey Mysterio was inducted by his long-term friend, legendary wrestler Conan, who inducted him into the Hall of Fame. Now, there's been some talk here because apparently there's been a conversation between Triple H and Conan, which was discussed on the latest podcast called Keeping It 100. Conan talked about his experience at the Hall of Fame, which was actually his first time in a WWE ring since he wrestled dark matches as the infamous Max Moon. If you remember Max Mini and Max Moon from the early 90s in WWE, that was Conan. But he touched on his speech that he wrote for Rey Mysterio. And he went on to then answer a question regarding about meeting Triple H, which he turned around and said, "Yes, I did. He was very nice. I don't want to get into it, but it looks like we might have another conversation." So, could there be future works in the line between Conan and WWE? I know a lot of people are speculating that Conan could actually be brought in as an on-screen manager for the newly put together version of the LWO, the Latin World Order, as we saw on SmackDown before WrestleMania. Rey Mysterio with Legado del Fantasma donning the LWO brand now, which, for many people is exciting. And Vicky Guerrero, the late great Eddie Guerrero's wife, tweeted out saying how Eddie would be very, very proud that Rey's brought back the LWO, and I'm pretty certain he would be. LWO was a fantastic faction back in the WCW days. So that's very, very interesting to see what could come of these potential discussions between Triple H and Conan. Moving on, Chelsea Green, she had her WrestleMania debut this past weekend. Apparently, she's a bit unwell. She ended up having some stomach problems, and she went on to say about she felt she may have celebrated WrestleMania a little too hard, but she got, I think it's extended gallbladder and some other stomach issues. We wish her a speedy recovery and hope that she comes back on our screens very, very soon. It feels like she can't catch a break when she's in WWE. Unfortunately, she was plagued with injuries and that in her original NXT run. So hopefully, Chelsea Green, we can see her getting back to it soon. And wish her all the very best. Someone else who's having health issues is Drew McIntyre. He's been pulled from a signing that he's supposed to be having. Should I say that he was meant to have had yesterday ahead of the live Friday Night Smackdown. Apparently, it's unknown at this time what the health issue is. He also hasn't tweeted anything, any updates, but it is a health issue. So we don't know how long Drew McIntyre is going to be absent from our screens. Again, everyone here at TSC send our absolute best wishes to Drew McIntyre for a speedy recovery. There are other reports saying that he's not actually happy with WWE at the moment due to creative things that have been offered to him, and also the money he's been offered for his for a new deal. Apparently, Wade Keller, PW Insider and the Wrestling Observer, have said that we alluded to this, that there's been talk that he's unhappy with his current situation in WWE, and I'm hearing it's kind of mix of creative and money and what kind of offer he's getting for a renewal. So it sounds like WWE is taking seriously the possibility that he's going to let this deal run out rather than agree to something that he believes is less than what he deserves and less what he thinks he has coming. Now, obviously, this would be a shame if WWE were to lose Drew McIntyre. We know it's well documented the issues that he had throughout his original WWE career, to him then spending time on the Indies and in Impact and Insane Championship Wrestling, rebuilding himself as Drew Galloway, and then coming back to NXT, dominating NXT, and then moving up to the main roster where he, won the Royal Rumble during the just before the pandemic hit, and then headlining WrestleMania. And unfortunately for him, carrying the company, which I don't think he gets a lot of credit that he deserves, he carried the company as champion throughout the pandemic, and it was really sad that he never got to be WWE champion in front of live fans. And I think a lot of people, including myself, probably think, he would probably get at least another run as WWE champion somewhere down the line. So it'd be interesting to see if Drew actually signs a new deal and sticks with WWE, or whether or not he moves on. And I can already imagine hearing fans saying, "Oh, he'll probably end up at AEW because everyone ends up in AEW." But I don't know. But let's wait and see what happens there. But health matter first. We wish Drew McIntyre all the very best with his health issues, and hope that he will then come back. So, without further ado, Dave Meltzer's providing another update on Randy Orton's supposed return. Now, Andy and I touched on in news in one of our recent shows about Dave Meltzer had actually said that there were positive updates on Randy Orton, and we could potentially see him appearing at WrestleMania or the Raw after Mania, which obviously, as we know now, did not occur. However, the latest update is not good news. Dave Meltzer has reported in the latest edition of Wrestling Observer newsletter that Orton's back injury was nowhere close to allowing him to return to in-ring action. So that it was just as abrupt as that. We don't know how severe, because Randy Orton himself hasn't spoken much really about his injury, what his current update is. We haven't seen him since May of last year. We don't know how severe, whether he'll even be able to wrestle again. So it is concerning that this late on, he's had back fusion surgery. Obviously, that would give him an extended period of time out, but not having any update on his condition, on his recovery, and when, what kind of window we could potentially see him returning again, still remains to be seen. So we hope Randy continues to recover well. We hope to see him back on our screens very, very soon. But anytime we'll get some updates in that, we will bring them to you. So without further ado, let's now get into Monday Night Raw. Now, okay, elephant in the room. It would appear that Vince McMahon may have been in charge of Monday Night Raw the night after WrestleMania. There's a lot of talk saying that some of the reports that have come out have been largely exaggerated, that there weren't numerous running sheets that were rewritten by Vince throughout. Again, we don't know. We're not there. But the show itself was very bland. It was very flat. I think the crowd, for the most part, were bored. I know I was watching at home while it was live. And, there's rumors coming out that Vince sat a gorilla position and called the show from back there. Now, I don't know what is going on with Vince McMahon. There's been a lot of encouragement over Twitter, social media, about fans to be chanting "Fire Vince" at live shows to dominate all that lot. Which, to be fair, WWE can block that out and replace them with fake crowd noises anyway, which is what they usually do, regardless. So I think that would probably be in vain. But maybe those that are there live will know better, and the powers that be, especially those at Endeavour, may become aware of it, because you have to think Endeavour going into this deal and taking over WWE and putting them in UFC together under the same banner. They're obviously going to want to have a healthy product, which they're going to want to pull in the viewers, pull in. They're going to want to deliver a product which the fans are going to love. And with all the constant negativity surrounding Vince McMahon, a lot of the issues that are going on behind the scenes, the potential dodgy dealings are what they've been saying, and things that are maybe not quite legit and things like that. You got to think that maybe it might come to a point where the board will have to potentially vote him out and be done with him completely. Now, what I will say, what I really do love is the outpour of support for Triple H. Now, obviously, if you tune in to TSC quite often, Andy and I are both advocates for Triple H. We're both a fan of what he's doing. I mean, it's no secret I'm a big fan of Triple H at his career anyway. But in terms of in a non-wrestling capacity, the product that Triple H has done, he's worked wonders. He hasn't got everything right. We know this. He hasn't got everything right, but more often than not, he has. The product has got better since SummerSlam of last year, and to see potentially Vince McMahon come in and maybe undo all the hard work that Triple H and his staff have been doing behind the scenes by improving our product. it would be a real shame. And I think that's really disrespectful to Triple H. And I really think that's really harsh on Triple H as well for all the hard work and everything that he's been doing. It was very interesting to note that on Friday Night Smackdown, which we will get into more on the actual show itself, when Triple H was announced to the ring to make an announcement again, which we'll get into. He was just announced as Hall of Fame, WWE Hall of Famer Triple H. There was no title given to him. There was no chief content officer, nothing like that whatsoever. So I don't know whether that was intentional, whether that's because his role's now changed or anything like that. So we'll keep an eye on that. We'll see what's happening there. But in terms of Raw itself, we obviously started off the big fallout. We started off with obviously the extended highlight video recapping everything. Triple H came out. The ovation was crazy. You can hear the love and feel the love from the fans in attendance towards Triple H. He come out and he addressed the deal with Endeavor. Didn't go into much detail, but he reassured that WWE is going nowhere, that the product will still be the same product that we love. And he went on to quote the then, now, forever quote that we see at the beginning of all WWE programming. Then we saw the Bloodline come out, obviously to celebrate. And when I say the Bloodline minus the Usos, they were told to go at the private jet and take some time off. But as Roman Reigns went to get the crowd to acknowledge him, Cody Rhodes comes out, obviously selling. Well, he might not have been selling any injuries. He might legit have been hurting. I mean, it was a really good main event, like I said, apart from the way the ending happened. And he told Roman Reigns, quite simple, that he had him. He had him. If it hadn't been for Solo, and I kind of agree with that as well. And Rhodes laid out the challenge, said he wanted a rematch, he wanted to fight him again. He wanted it on the same night, but the answer was basically no. So then he said he came for a fight. It was agreed that Roman Reigns and Solo Sikoa would meet Cody Rhodes in the main event of Monday Night Raw, but Cody could only choose a partner, but anyone that tagged with him would not be allowed to face Roman Reigns for the undisputed WWE Universal Championship while Roman Reigns was champion. Then, out of anybody, Brock Lesnar's music hits. Brock Lesnar comes down. Brock Lesnar, as we know, had nothing to lose. Brock is also under those terms and conditions. He already can't challenge Roman Reigns for the championship because he lost at SummerSlam, and he's not allowed to challenge Roman Reigns for the title while Roman's champion at this time. So it was almost like nothing to lose, much to the shock and despair of Paul Heyman and Roman Reigns. Now, it was gearing up for a great main event. Unfortunately, as the match, we are fast forwarding a bit. As the match got ready to start, the bell rang. Brock Lesnar pounced on Cody Rhodes, took him down, hit him with the F5, and repeatedly beat him through the announce table, anything like that. And straight away you're thinking, well, what's happening here? What is Brock Lesnar's motive? We still don't. We obviously don't know what the motive is. I know that last night on SmackDown, Wade Barrett apparently said that Brock Lesnar's motive was that Brock got to open WrestleMania while Cody Rhodes got the main event, and that doesn't kind of sit right with me. I don't think that's the reason. So we'll obviously hopefully find out more this coming Monday on Monday Night Raw. But it was a brutal assault on Cody Rhodes. I'm hoping that they're not, by doing this, moving Cody away from the Bloodline Roman Reigns situation. I really hope they're not doing that. It was a very bizarre situation to happen. I mean, it doesn't surprise you in some ways because Brock Lesnar, let's face it, doesn't play well with others. So I don't know. I'd like to get your thoughts on what you think of that whole situation, what you think this is leading up to, what the point of this is. It is worth noting that at this time, Roman Reigns is not scheduled to be at Backlash in Puerto Rico, which is the next pay-per-view. Because remember, this is a non-premium live event zone. We don't call it that here. We call it pay-per-view, which is what it is. So it'll be interesting to see what's going to happen between now and Backlash, and also to see what was the main event going to be for Backlash in Puerto Rico. Because if Roman Reigns is still champion at that point, when he's going to hit the 1,000 days as champion, we don't know what the main event there may be. So we'll keep an eye on that. Moving on, though, someone who was, speaking of Brock Lesnar, who was not successful at WrestleMania against Brock Lesnar was Omos. Now, after losing that match, you have to wonder what are WWE's long-term plans for Omos? Because, we touched on this on the WrestleMania review. For the guy of his size, he has a lot more agility and movement than what other guys of his height and stature in WWE of past has. Are WWE going to give him worthy opponents for him that are going to allow him to actually wrestle a match, or are they just going to keep him as he is until they eventually release him, or he asks for a release, or however he leaves the company? But he went up one-on-one against Elias, and it was basically another squash match. So we're back to the same formula. Again, this is where it looks like it had Vince McMahon written all over it. It was pointless. I don't get the whole Omos thing. I genuinely don't see why we have to keep seeing these same, giant faces in the ring and having these squash matches. It makes no sense to me. Whatever. So we'll see. Rey Mysterio versus Austin Theory was another match that we had. Now, as we know, Rey Mysterio, fresh off of his win over his son Dominic Mysterio at WrestleMania, Rey spoke before he was interrupted. He said about his match at WrestleMania and wrestling Dominic. Austin Theory came out, he said that both he and Rey deserved respect because they both did exactly what they said what they were going to do at the weekend, which is win their respective matches. Obviously, Austin Theory playing up to the fact that he defeated John Cena. But they ended up agreeing to have a non-title match there, which obviously was a decent. It was an okay match, and that. But again, as you would expect, Dominic Mysterio coming at ringside and causing distractions, which Theory hit his finisher and got the win. And then we had Dominic Mysterio beating down Rey Mysterio, as where Damian Priest was there. Bad Bunny was at ringside at front row, which ended up being because obviously we know that Bad Bunny assisted Rey Mysterio at WrestleMania when he needed a bit of help, and we saw war of words. I couldn't tell you in English what was said. It was they spoke in their language as they do, and but it led to Dom trying to throw a punch at Bad Bunny, which he blocked, and landed a punch of his own onto Dominic, which then prompted Damian Priest, who, as we know, is friends with Bad Bunny. They've teamed before at WrestleMania. Basically saying that, what are you doing, etc. Again, speaking, and we ended up getting Bad Bunny pulled over the barrier, and Bad Bunny ended up getting laid out by Damian Priest and Dominic Mysterio. But maybe at Backlash, and I don't know if this is going to happen, but I think it's probably odds on, we may end up getting a tag team match between Rey Mysterio and Bad Bunny versus Damian Priest and Dominic Mysterio. And I'm actually quite looking forward to seeing Bad Bunny wrestle again because, again, just like Logan Paul, people might not always agree with it, but the guy can go in the ring. But either way, we're going to have to wait for an official announcement on this, and we'll wait and see. But that, for me, I think is most likely. But on another note, remember though, Bad Bunny is actually scheduled to be the Backlash host, so it'll be interesting to see whether they'll make it look like an impromptu tag team match or whatever. I genuinely don't know. So we will see. We saw the brand new WWE Undisputed Tag Team Champions in action, Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens against the Street Profits. It was a very a friendly interaction between the two, which the challenge was laid down. Now, this is actually the point where I expected maybe we might see the Street Profits split because, again, Raw after Mania. It didn't happen. Owens and Zayn did retain. It was a very good match, actually. It was one of the better matches of the night, and that's saying something. It wasn't, a show stealer. It wasn't amazing or anything like that, but it was a very good tag team match between two babyface teams. Now, I don't see what more the Street Profits offer. And before anyone jumps on with hate towards me on this one, the reason why I'm saying is I don't see where they go, because they have these matches. A lot of these matches they win. They're quite a successful tag team. But when it comes to winning the championships now, I mean, we know they've been champions before, but they never seem to pull it off. And I also think with the tag team division being headed by a team like Owens and Zayn, who are basically two pretty much main eventers or thereabouts, it's going to be very difficult for them to be dethroned. So it's still going to be interesting to see how WWE go about booking them losing the tag titles. But for me, since Elimination Chamber, we saw Montez Ford of the Street Profits. It was one of his first, high-profile matches as a singles wrestler. In that match, Angelo Dawkins was not in that match, and he again proved, he's got what it takes to potentially become a major singles superstar. So I'm still surprised they haven't yet split them. Not to say that I'm not a fan of Street Profits. I like the Street Profits. I'm not a massive fan, but I am somewhat of a fan of theirs. But I just feel that they've done all that they can do the way WWE currently is. But that's the way that's the way it looks. But anyway, we're going to go ahead to someone who is not a happy person, Bobby Lashley. It was originally meant to perform at WrestleMania in a match against Bray Wyatt. We know Bray Wyatt apparently has alleged health issues, which have not been disclosed, which is why he's absent at the moment. But Bobby Lashley, went to social media and said, I'm still competing at WrestleMania. That did not happen. He won the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal on the Friday Night Smackdown, the night before WrestleMania Night 1. He came out at WrestleMania with the trophy and posed and then left. It was said that he was unhappy that he didn't get to wrestle at WrestleMania. He let that be known backstage, and Mustafa Ali, wrong place, wrong time. Following a bit of a little bit of words between Bobby Lashley and Bronson Reed backstage. Mustafa Ali, of all people, trying to give Bobby Lashley some advice and about being positive and things like that. Bobby Lashley took that the wrong way, and then proceeded to end up with a match between the two of them, which Lashley absolutely destroyed him. Mustafa Ali again, not quite getting where I think he feels he should be in WWE. I said the squash match, very forgettable. It was actually at the time of sorting all of this out and everything, I actually remember that them two actually had a match. Yeah, that's not yeah, less said about that the better. We saw Bianca Belair. She retained her Raw Women's Championship against Asuka at WrestleMania. Asuka was nowhere to be seen on Raw as well, which was quite surprising, because when Bianca Belair came out, I actually expected Asuka to come out and maybe Asuka to turn full heel on that, but we didn't. And but what we did get was Rhea Ripley, who's the SmackDown Women's Champion after defeating Charlotte Flair at WrestleMania, come out and had a few words for each other. And Rhea basically, pretty much saying that Bianca's on potential borrowed time. Bianca Belair saying that, Rhea was pretty much ducking her. That's why she went for Charlotte and all that lot. But but it was just, it would appear that we may end up getting these two against each other very soon. Again, I don't see who is good enough at the moment, or who WWE are going to put over enough to be able to dethrone Rhea Ripley as SmackDown Women's Champion anytime soon. So that's a very interesting situation. Very similar to, as I say, about the Undisputed Tag Team Championships with Owens and Zayn. I don't really know what team really could potentially dethrone them, but well, those are some of the interesting things that we have. But anyway, this all led into having there was a tag team match between Damage Control's Dakota Kai and Io Sky. Bayley was not with them on Raw. Obviously, lots of speculation. There was that mysterious tweet that that apparently ended up being deleted, where she said bye and things like that. And there's rumors saying she's not happy. We don't know what is going on there. I like Bayley. I'm a fan of Bayley. I hope that she's not going anywhere, but we'll see. Anyway, Damage Control ended up having a match against Liv Morgan and Raquel Rodriguez, and it was for number one contenderships for the WWE Women's Tag Team Championships, which Liv Morgan and Raquel Rodriguez won. So on the next episode of Raw, they're going to face the champions Becky Lynch and Lita for those titles. So I'm actually looking forward to that one. I'm hoping Lita, especially as a fan of Lita, I hope Lita moves better and quicker than what she did at WrestleMania. She seemed very stiff. Trish was in absolutely fantastic condition in the ring. But Lita not so much, which was very strange, because Lita's always been, really, really quick as far as I'm concerned. So we'll see what happens there. But again, going back to WrestleMania, we know Shayna Baszler and Ronda Rousey, they won the women's tag team fatal 4-way showcase match. They won that, but there was no championship opportunity on the line. It appears, though, that Baszler may be injured. It looked like she was favouring her ankle towards the end of the win that they had at WrestleMania. So I don't know whether that's one of the reasons what's going on. But regarding Rhea Ripley and Bianca Belair, I'm hoping this is going to be the case. I'm hoping WWE are looking at unifying the women's championships, the SmackDown and the Raw Women's Championship. Again, this is a conversation, a topic, a debate, if you will, that I'm hoping to have with Andy and maybe a guest on an upcoming episode of the Squared Circle, where we're going to discuss about the amount of championships that WWE have. Are there too many? Does the fact that there are too many make the championships feel less prestigious than what they used to and what they should do? Let us know again what you think about that, because it's there's a lot going on, and another reason why I wonder is something which we're going to talk about when we're going to move on to SmackDown in a little while. But just feel that maybe we can we can maybe, do with less championships and actually have more people going for those championships to maybe mix things up a little bit more. We shall see. But that appears to be maybe a direction that they're going to, because we didn't see Asuka, and again we saw what happened obviously between Bianca and Rhea on Monday Night Raw. Speaking of a return, if you're like me and you're like Andy and you're not a fan of Riddle, well, you would have been exactly as uninterested as what we were with the return, because Matt Riddle did return to Monday Night Raw the night after Mania. It was during a promo with The Miz. Miz actually went to attack Matt Riddle. Riddle then took him down. And that was about it, really. It was, Riddle got a pop. I think he's definitely over with a lot of the fans. But for people like me, fans like me, don't really see all the hype with Matt Riddle. That's basically... that was the only real surprise, if you can call it that we had on Raw. And that was it, really, for Mania, Raw after Mania. Again, very flat. It's had a lot of criticism, and rightly so. The only real talking point was, the main talking point, apart from Bianca and Rhea facing off, which may be leading to a unification match, was the Brock Lesnar's assault on Cody Rhodes, and that is about it. I don't really know what else that can be said about Monday Night Raw past on that. It's... Let us know your views on what you thought of Monday Night Raw after Mania this year. As I said, last year was poor, and I was there in person. This year, again, very, very poor. Unfortunately, that appears to be the new norm for Raw after Mania. Is they're not as interesting as they once were. So, but moving on to NXT, off the back of NXT Stand and Deliver, a very enjoyable NXT Stand and Deliver. It was a very, very good show. We started up with Zoe Stark came out, Indy Hartwell, the brand new NXT Women's Champion, coming out to celebrate with the crowd. She spoke to the crowd, saying she didn't think it was going to be possible that she would win. She spoke about how much she loved the fans and how much winning the championship meant to her. Zoe Stark came out and went to challenge her. I love Indy Hartwell. I think she needs to be reunited with Dexter Lumis and Johnny Gargano and Candice LeRae on the main roster. She got a great reaction, but there was kind of a weird reaction when she was doing her promo. It was very, I don't know, it might have just been me. I know some others picked up on it, but it led anyway to Zoe Stark coming out, which I think makes the situation worse. But what Zoe Stark said made sense. It was she was calling Indy Hartwell, I think it was a fluke champion. It made kind of sense what she was saying, but I don't know, just the crowd just didn't seem to be interested in the talking between these two, and it just didn't feel like, for a build up for what's potentially going to become a huge women's championship match, and maybe Indy Hartwell's first a huge title defense for her. Just didn't feel that way for me. But Indy Hartwell got a fantastic "You Deserve It" chant from the crowd. Absolutely, that was brilliant. But what was very odd as well, because Roxanne Perez, who was the NXT Women's Championship until Indy won it at NXT Stand and Deliver, was that when Indy Hartwell said that she felt that it was only right that Roxanne Perez get the first championship opportunity, the crowd booed. So I don't know. Maybe there's not as much love for Roxanne Perez as maybe WWE even thought. I've just found that one quite interesting. But I don't know. I really don't know. But next up was a tag team match. Yeah, boy. Pretty deadly. Kit Wilson and Elton Prince against Tony D'Angelo and Stax. I enjoyed it. It was a good tag team match. It was decent. And Pretty Deadly getting the win. It was really good. I mean, Pretty Deadly. I don't think really ever miss a beat. I think they're really good. They're a well-oiled machine. I mean, they've been tagging for such a long time. But I do think that D'Angelo and Stax, the more they team together, the better they look. And I'm starting to become a bit of a fan of the family. I really, really do. I actually thought that D'Angelo and Stax may have won this match going into it, but I don't think it really harms them, and I do think Pretty Deadly needed the win as well. So if this is going to be a program that we're going to see over the next month or so between the family and Pretty Deadly, I'm all for it. I just think they could do some fantastic things together. So but I do think it's not going to be too long before Pretty Deadly should end up on the main roster. I think that's a given. They showed when they wrestled against Kofi Kingston and Xavier Woods of New Day that they can compete with those levels of performance as well. And that's not taking anything away from any of the other tag teams in NXT. I mean, Gallus, again, I'm a fan of Gallus. I think Gallus are fantastic as well. So we'll see what happens there. But we'll go. We'll go and hopefully see Pretty Deadly up on the main roster, and that's not a biased opinion at all. That's just I genuinely do feel that they're already ready for the main roster. We saw some interaction with JC Jane and Gigi Dolan. JC Jane has promised to break Gigi Dolan's will next after breaking her spirit at Stand and Deliver. It seemed at Stand and Deliver that Gigi Dolan was going to win the NXT Women's Championship and she was on top of the ladder. JC Jane, who was not in that match, running down to the ring, climbing up the ladder and costing Gigi Dolan the opportunity for that. As a fan of a Toxic Attraction, I'm a fan of both of these for different reasons. I think they both bring something really, really good to the table. It definitely has that Shawn Michaels Mighty Jannetty feel to it, but hopefully it'll be done even better. And both of these women will get, really good singles careers going forward because I think they deserve it. So we'll see what happens there. Next up, we ended up with a match between Odyssey Jones and Dijak. Now, I'm not a fan of this Dijak gimmick. I don't see any reason why they should have steered away after getting rid of the whole retribution thing with Dijakovic. I don't know why they didn't just send him back to the way he was before all of that. Because as we know, when he was having matches against, like the likes of Keith Lee and Adam Cole and guys like that, we saw what a great in-ring competitor Dominik Dijakovic really is. So yeah, I'm not a fan of this gimmick that he has, but he did beat Odyssey Jones. It was just very mid-card. It was really back and forth. It was very competitive, but it was a really short match as well. I felt that they probably could have gone for another 5 to 10 minutes for the match to have stood out a little bit more. But I don't know. I would like to see Dijakovic on the main roster, but as himself, not this Dijak character that he's got now. For me, it just doesn't really work. But we had a nice little backstage segment with Gallus and reintroducing Joe Coffey to everyone else. Obviously, people like me here in the UK are more familiar with Joe Coffey. And he's promised that he's going to add more gold to Gallus. So makes you wonder if he's going to have his sights set on the NXT Championship or the NXT North American Championship. But he's promised. But first, he wants to pick some fights to establish their dominance. And I'm all here for it. As I said, I'm a fan. I like to see what he's going to bring to it, and I think it's really good that he's now arrived to join his Gallus brethren on NXT. I would say the rest of the NXT roster need to look out. So we'll see how that goes. Following that, we had a high-flying match between Nathan Fraser and Dragon Lee. Dragon Lee, off of a very good performance at NXT Stand and Deliver, not winning the North American Championship in that match. But it was solid. Not so much in terms of drama. But both men look very strong, very back and forth between the two of them. Dragon Lee, very impressive. I suppose you'd call him a cruiserweight. Another one to add to what is a very, very good group of cruiserweights that NXT have to offer. You look at the likes of JD McDonough, for example, Wesley, who is the North American champion, just to name a couple. So, it was really good. But Dragon Lee won by pinfall. It was really good. But what was really noticeable as well was Noam Dar, Supernova, making an appearance, carrying his NXT UK Heritage Cup, and he told both men that maybe he would decide that maybe one of them would be worthy for a match to challenge him for the Heritage Cup. So it's interesting to see how that's going to play into things. But it's good to see Noam Dar on NXT. Be interesting to see where he goes here in NXT after moving on from NXT UK. Up next, we had Indy Hartwell defend the NXT Women's Championship against Zoe Stark. Indy really fought well in this match. I really, really enjoyed her. As I said, I'm not really a fan of Zoe Stark, but I thought they had a really good match. Indy Hartwell getting the win from reverse. She reversed it into I think it was a backslide. Got the 3 count from that. After the match, Tiffany Stratton came out to challenge Indy Hartwell, but then Cora Jade finally made her return. She came out and laid out Indy Hartwell and pretty much was saying that she was going to have an opportunity, but focus remaining on Hartwell and Stark. They did look good in the ring together, I have to say. Maybe the fact that it was for the Women's Championship, they both upped their game, but it worked. And, but not the best of title defenses, but it was a solid match, and they brought out, they both leveled their game. Not their absolute best, but they both leveled their game. So this is one of the reasons why I think on the main roster about there being too many championships, because just looking at this from an example, you've got Indy Hartwell, who's just won the NXT Women's Championship, but already there's like sort of 4, 5, 6 challengers already all vying for this opportunity to compete for a shot at the NXT Women's Championship. This is what I think the main roster lacks. I know at the moment Roman Reigns holds both the WWE Championship and the Universal Championship, but whilst they were separate, while Lesnar had one or whoever had one and one had the other, you narrow it down just to the odd 1 or 2, maybe 3 at a push, going for the championship and that, and it just feels very limited and stifled. So for me, having the one champion, the one title, and having multiple people, wanting to up their game to really push to prove that they're worthy of a shot, of an opportunity. I think that is exactly what the main roster needs. Going back to, like, as I said, the Attitude Era, or the early 2000s, mid 2000s, when there was before they did the brand split, where you would have sort of like 5, 6, 7, 8 main eventers all vying for the championship, and we got things like a 6-man Hell in a Cell match at Armageddon in the year 2000. All right, it wasn't the best kind of match, but the idea of it was great and things like that. So Yeah, so I like the fact that there's a lot of potential suitors for challengers for Indy Hartwell's championship, and be interesting to see how that'll develops over time. We saw Andre Chase backstage. He promised Duke Hudson an MVP award celebration next week on NXT. That'll be interesting. Duke Hudson at NXT Stand and Deliver teasing that he had joined Schism, but actually then attacked them from behind and helped them Chase U win that match. We saw Alba Fire and Isla Dawn celebrating their NXT Tag Team Championship win, Stand and Deliver, in this really dark kind of room. And then they laid down a warning for Kiana James and Fallon Henley, saying that they would finish them off soon. So that's an interesting thing, because I actually thought that Kiana James and Fallon Henley as a team would be done now, because there's all this dissension between the two of them backstage, in the back, with this storyline that's been going on for a little while now. So it's interesting that they would lay down a warning to both of those. So that's maybe signals that they're not going to be done as a team or whatever anytime soon. So we'll see what happens on that. We had another women's match, Tatum Paxley versus Ivy Nile. Ivy Nile capitalizing on Tatum every opportunity she had. She did win the match with, I think it was Dragon Sleeper. She won by submission. It was a really action-packed match. They really, I think, took advantage of the time they had in the ring given to them. A couple of little sloppy botch spots and that, but I think it was because they were trying to fit so much into, I think it was like a 4 or 5 minute runtime that they had for the match. But I think it was more about, although Paxley looked good, I think it was more about Ivy Nile just reestablishing herself. And I think she's actually improving as time's going on. So it'll be interesting to see how much of a push Ivy Nile gets up. But they were once a team, and they did break up, but it's Niall's looking good in the ring. Absolutely. Wesley defended his NXT North American Championship against Axiom, one of his opponents at Stand and Deliver. Now, this was an outstanding match. Now, I'm not a big fan of both. I have to say, I have given Wesley props at how he's carried himself very well, especially with the NXT North American Championship since becoming an established singles wrestler. Full of counters, high flying, very high octane. It was exactly what you would expect from the both of them. Didn't disappoint. After we had Wesley winning the match by pinfall. After the match, though, Scripps, who we knew as Reggie, tried to sneak attack Axiom, but he got caught off guard and hit him with a golden ratio. It was a very it didn't come across great. Seeing Scripps tried the sneak attack just like that, and it was just cut straight off. It didn't look great for Scripps. I can't take Scripps seriously, especially when something like that happens. It's not it's not great. But Wesley, to be fair, I mean, he's a great champion. He's performing so well. He really is. But I'm looking to see who is going to dethrone him as champion, because Wesley is just always looking impressive. We saw a backstage segment with Ilya Dragunov. He also laid down a warning that he wasn't done with the NXT North American Championship. Von Wagner challenged Cesar, but Mr. Stone told him that he would drop him as a client if Von Wagner lost. So make that of what you will. I don't think many people particularly care, in my opinion, but there we go. But one of the most notable moments of the night actually happened at the end of the show, because Carmelo Hayes, who is the new NXT Championship, defeating Bron Breakker at Stand and Deliver. came out to celebrate to the live crowd. People saying he deserved it, and he was nothing but respectful for Bron Breakker. He thanked Bron Breakker for the respect he showed for him. He called out Bron Breakker, who came to the ring. They had a moment where they shook hands, and Bron Breakker raised Carmelo Hayes' arm and pointed to him, as if to the passing of the torch. But then out of nowhere, Bron Breakker turning heel and flattening Carmelo Hayes. Some people say this might have been a long time coming. Not sure if that's the case. I think maybe it's needed because maybe this indicates that Bron Breakker isn't going to get his call up to the main roster just yet. So that's interesting because a lot of people expected him to be. I think when anyone turned around and said, who do you think is the one person from NXT you're going to see called up to the main roster after Mania is finished, or maybe like the Raw or SmackDown after WrestleMania? Bron Breakker was the guy. That was the name that pretty much everyone was saying, oh, Bron Breakker, absolutely. He's done everything there is that he can do in NXT. He needs to go up to the main roster. And I kind of agreed with that. And I still agree with that. But the fact that he's turned heel gives him another dimension, and it also gives him the opportunity to work as a heel for us to see how he carries himself as a heel. So, we'll see how this goes. But Carmelo Hayes has been, one of the best in NXT for a little while now. So it was, a good decision to put the NXT Championship on him. So we'll see how, what Bron Breakker has to say for himself, and we'll see what happens next week on NXT. Because that shocked quite a few people. That did. We'll see what happens on there. But now moving on to Friday night and to SmackDown. SmackDown after WrestleMania was a better show than what Raw was. It still wasn't great, but it was much better show. We saw Sheamus versus the Brawling Brutes, Sheamus, Butch, and Ridge Holland against Imperium in a 6-man tag team match. Now, back off of WrestleMania, even Dave Meltzer gave the triple threat match between Sheamus, Drew McIntyre, and Gunther for the Intercontinental Championship at WrestleMania a 5-star match, and couldn't agree more. The Brawling Brutes getting the win in this match. These guys could wrestle forever. And it would always be, to quote Sheamus, a banger. It wasn't one of their absolute best, but it was still a very, very, very good 6-man tag team match. No doubt about that. Now, I don't know, because Sheamus picked up the win, pinning Vinci, but I just wonder what is next for Sheamus. Are he and Gunther going to go at it again? Maybe one last time? Or are they going to sort of freshen things up? They're going to mix it up a little bit. But, if we're going to have a Sheamus versus Gunther match again for the Intercontinental Championship, I am all for that. But it's got to get to the point where it doesn't get stale. I would say that the next one, maybe if it's a Backlash, that be it and be done and dusted and leave it at that for a while. I still think and maintain the opinion that I think that this time next year, Gunther's going to be in the main event picture for the WWE Championship or Universal Championship or Undisputed Universal Championship, whatever that championship situation is going to be at the time. So we'll see what happens there. We ended up having Ricochet against one half of the Viking Raiders, Ivar. It was okay. Different mix of styles. You've got the big brute of Ivar versus the high-flying Ricochet. Braun Strowman and Eric were both banned from being at ringside, although Valhalla was allowed to be at ringside in the corner of Ivar. Didn't matter anyway. Ricochet picking up the victory. Again, it was okay. There wasn't a lot to it. It was just a fun match between big brutish heel versus high-flying babyface. Just, a decent match, and it was still anything better than what Raw pretty much put out, apart from maybe the tag team match between the Street Profits and Owens and Zayn. Backstage, we saw Paul Heyman telling Jey Uso that Jimmy was not to be seen, was not around at the building. Jey had said he hadn't spoken to Jimmy. He asked Solo if he'd spoken to Jimmy. Solo just stared at him because Solo doesn't really talk. But Paul Heyman explained that Roman Reigns instructed Jimmy to watch home, to stay at home and watch, because Jey is going to solve the Sami Zayn problem for however millionth attempt it's going to be, as they're going to have a one-on-one match in the main event of SmackDown. And just as Jey left the room, Paul Heyman said to Solo Sikoa, he says if he solves, he either solves the Sami Zayn problem or you solve our problems today. I think you may know where this is going. That's we'll get to that. Tag team action again. Liv Morgan and Raquel Rodriguez, fresh off their victory on Raw, taking on Natalya and Shotzi, or as I call them, and I still think they should have been called Shots Through the Heart. I still think it's a shame that Natalya's a suggestion of that name has not become official yet. I think that's a WWE missing trick on merch with that one, because I think a lot of us would love a Shot Through the Heart t-shirt. Anyway, so again, Morgan Rodriguez picking up the victory. It was an okay match. Shotzi and Natalya, they got a bit of offense in. It was quite spirited, etc. But the oblivion to Shotzi by Liv Morgan finishing the match. I know some people again are talking about the women's tag team division being quite underwhelming and quite lackluster at the moment. I have to accept that this is the case, and I agree with it. That is the case. I'd say that it's the same for the men's tag team division as well, because apart from the high profile of the Usos versus Zayn and Owens that we had at WrestleMania, apart from that, there's not really a lot going on with the men's tag team division. It's still the same, Alpha Academy, Street Profits, Viking Raiders, and there's just not a lot happening. And I think that's partially down to the fact that the Usos had held the Undisputed Tag Team Championship for such a long time. And now the tag titles are with Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn. So they have gone, both tag team divisions have gone very stale recently. It'll be interesting if things get mixed up with what we're about to get to now, because actually, before I go into this, I want to touch on something backstage. We had another backstage interaction between Xavier Woods and LA Knight. Xavier Woods was seen playing, I assume, WWE 2K23 with Madcap Moss. Emma was in attendance as well. LA Knight came in complaining about how he didn't wrestle in LA at WrestleMania, etc., and how when everyone was talking about LA Knight. You could hear the pop for him the moment he walked on screen. You could hear the crowd going absolutely nuts for him. The pop was loud. When he'd done his LA Knight thing, they all, in unison, on time, shouted it out loud. There's no doubt that he is so over with people and needs to get a push. Now, we talk about, people were talking about LA Knight being the future. Well, the guy isn't as young as what a lot of people think he is. He's been around for quite some time. But I think WWE need to capitalize on him while he's hot, and push him towards a championship, maybe the Intercontinental Championship, maybe move him to Raw and have him go for the US title. I don't know, but he is so over with everybody, he absolutely needs to get a push. But again, Xavier Woods criticising LA Knight and pretty much his work ethic, saying about instead of moaning about it, do something about it, etc. And again, offered to beat him up. Yeah. So, but we will go on to one of the main talking points from SmackDown. Triple H came out because he had another announcement to make, and he came out and basically said that we are going to have in a very short few weeks. The WWE Draft is coming back. Now, I don't know if the draft is going to be as it has been in recent years, which has been very underwhelming and a bit meh. But he said that every superstar is going to be eligible, and it will change the game. He said that this time he has said that this is basically going to be a game changer. This is, he's hyping up this draft to be maybe the biggest it's ever been. How they're going to do that, I don't know. If Triple H is going to be running things and he's going to continue to run creative and be in charge and Vince is not, then this could be exciting. The first draft under Triple H and Triple H directing where the superstars are going to end up going in the draft. And that excites me. I can see some great matches coming up. I think he might be able to balance the shows out a bit more. And I just hope Vince doesn't interfere with that, because if Triple H is given free rein to sort the draft out, then I'm excited about it. It'll be the first draft I've been excited about since I think the original. And I love the way they did the original back in, I think it was 2002. So we'll see what happens there. So we had Rhea Ripley come out to do a bit of a promo. She had all of Judgment Day with her. Finn Balor went on to talk about how he's still standing. He had all those staples in his head, and he's still standing, but Edge is nowhere to be seen. Dominic Mysterio then coming out making excuses about the way he lost to Rey Mysterio, saying that he took it easy on Rey. He got booed, and then he warned Bad Bunny. So we ended up with Damian Priest, Dominic Mysterio against Rey Mysterio and Santos Escobar. They come out in the LWO tops. The rest of Legado del Fantasma were wearing them at ringside. It was a good tag team match. Priest and Dominic winning the match, but Damian Priest, for me, doesn't get, because of this whole Judgment Day thing, he doesn't get the recognition he deserves. I think he's got better as well. I do agree. I think Triple H is investing a lot of time in Judgment Day, and to the point it's working. I mean, I think there's no doubt that, pretty much everyone in Judgment Day is at this moment in time thriving. Ripley's absolutely fantastic. Finn Balor is doing really well. Dominic's doing absolutely great. I mean, I love the way that both Finn and Dominic excused their losses. The excuses they came up with were good. But they're really, really commanding their crowds, and Dom is the heat on Dominic is brilliant. But there's no doubt he has got better and better since joining Judgment Day. It's been a while since I've heard heat for one person like we have from there. So we'll see how the future is for Dom. Going into the main event, Sami Zayn versus Jey Uso. It was a good match. Again, Sikoa trying to get involved every opportunity he could. Noteworthy, which I should have mentioned, Kevin Owens was hurt backstage. There was a trunk that was over his leg whilst the attack happened by Solo Sikoa. This was happening while Sami was having a conversation with Jey Uso. Sami's still trying to get through to Jey about everything and trying to get him to see sense. And the attack happened, and Sami helped remove the trunk off of Kevin Owens' leg. They all had to be kept apart. So I don't know why the injury angle. It's very interesting. I don't know what the plan is there. So we'll see what happens there. But the match was entertaining. But Simone Spike, again, by Solo, setting up Jay for the win. Then Solo went on a beatdown on Sami Zayn, and he went to go and deliver another Simone Spike to Sami Zayn, but Jay stopped, and there was this moment where they were almost like Solo and Jay were face to face, almost nose to nose. They were staring each other down before Jay then attacked Sami Zayn, and it ended up being Matt Riddle, of all people, coming out to make the save. Make of it what you will, but I'm still intrigued to see where this thing with Jey Uso goes, because you can tell that he's still conflicted after all this time. He's still conflicted and he's still not sure, but he still manages to pull the trigger, just like, but he still has the doubts and the hesitations beforehand. So I'm still intrigued to see where this goes. This still has my attention. I don't know why Riddle ended up making the save, why he's a part of it. I really hope to God we're not going to have Riddle and Sami Zayn as a tag team going forward. If Kevin Owens is going to be out or written off TV for a little bit, I don't know what it means for the tag team championships. I don't know. I guess we'll have to find out. But I genuinely don't know what is the planning there. It's very weird, very strange, but yeah. But that was SmackDown for this week. So let us know what your thoughts were. Did you prefer SmackDown to Raw this week? Is there anything in particular that you're excited about? What's got your attention? Let us know, and we will air your views on our next show. But we are going to be moving on now to speak all about AEW and Dynamite. Now, right, okay, so we started off what was supposed to be Juice Robinson versus Ricky Starks. Now, this has been built up over a few weeks following Revolution, but it didn't happen because my man, my favorite wrestler in the world right now, Switchblade Jay White, came out to make his first appearance on AEW TV for some time, to beat down Ricky Starks along with Juice Robinson. It is official. Switchblade Jay White is now all elite. He is now an AEW superstar. I'm a little bit gutted. I was one of those. I had a feeling it wasn't going to happen, but I would love to have seen him in WWE. But it is what it is. But I'm glad that he's going to be wrestling in the US a lot more. And if by some minor miracle I managed to snap up all-in tickets for AEW's all-in pay-per-view at Wembley Stadium in London. Yes, that was the big announcement coming out of AEW this week. On August 27th, if I can pick up tickets for that, I'll get to see, hopefully, Jay White wrestling at Wembley Stadium, which would be amazing, as I'm a big fan. I got to meet Jay in person last year in Dallas, which was amazing. I managed to have a nice long conversation with him as well, which was fantastic, and I got a great pick with him. I just think Jay White's brilliant. I know some people are still not sold over him, but I think Jay White's absolutely brilliant. So I'm interested and excited to see what he does if he's given enough screen time in AEW. But anyway, it was a no contest, but it was definitely a way to kick Dynamite off this past week. But the first match that did happen was the Trios Championship match between the House of Black, the champions, against Orange Cassidy and Best Friends. Now, this was, again, a very, very good match. We saw, excuse me, well, we saw, again, back and forth, we saw the champions dominate, and at times, we also see every time Best Friends or Orange Cassidy had any kind of momentum, House of Black just shut it down. But to be fair to Best Friends and Orange Cassidy, they did at one point look like they may cause an upset and actually steal the tag titles away from them. But Buddy Matthews was able to finish off Taylor and score a pin for a successful championship defense. Now, again, we saw a lot of crowd pleasing spots. It was the kind of match you'd expect. It would be good to see a match between Malachi Black and Cassidy, Orange Cassidy. That would be fun. I know a lot of people will go, "Oh, that would be too one-sided." No, I think that would be really, really good fun. But if this is all we're going to get, then this is all we're going to get. So we'll see. But we did see. And forgive me for the pronunciation. I can never pronounce them. La Fascion Ingobernable were ringside. I think I might have got that right. I probably murdered that, but forgive me. They're ringside. It suggests that they may get a challenge at some point between them and the House of Black. But I don't know. They're both heels, but it's AEW, so it could happen. It could happen. One of the things that Trent Beretta's mum, Sue, she drove Orange Cassidy and Best Friends to the arena in her minivan. Wonderful. That I love that. That's just absolutely brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. I love that. AEW Women's Championship was on the line. Jamie Hayter was defending against Riho. Again, this was a decent, solid match. Probably the toughest challenge to the World Women's Championship in singles competition. Riho, as we know, was the very first ever AEW Women's Champion. But Jamie Hayter did retain the match, the title, should I say, by winning the match. We did get a cut at the end of the match. The Outcasts were backstage with Renee Paquette, and basically they were laying down the gauntlet, saying that soon one of them will be holding the AEW Women's Championship. Saraya at one point responding to Renee Paquette about when Renee said, "Well, there's only one championship and there's three of you." Saraya sort of shut her down. She said, "Look, we're friends. Don't go stirring the pot." But it would seem that the Outcasts are going to do whatever they can do to jeopardize Jamie Hayter's Women's Championship reign. So we'll see how that happens. We saw the Jericho Appreciation Society minus Chris Jericho, Matt Menard, Angelo Parker, and Jake Hager came out to the stage area, and they came out again, hoping that the Acclaimed were going to join, and it didn't happen. It didn't happen. We are going to get on Rampage next week. We're going to get a tag team match between Parker and Maynard and the Acclaimed coming up. But it was quite a entertaining segment. And again, another fantastic rap followed by a Scissor Me Daddy Ass to keep the Long Island crowd very, very happy through that. Then we got to see a video segment of MJF in Long Island, where we was getting an announcement that it was going to be MJF Day in Oyster Bay, and he was getting the key to Long Island. Then we saw like a band, like an ensemble there, and MJF came out singing a full rendition before he accepted the key to the town of Oyster Bay, singing Pennies from Heaven, which I loved it. I absolutely loved it. This is going to go down quite possibly. Do not be surprised if when we do our top picks, Andy and I, on the next show, if I don't put this down as the best segment of the week. I loved it. I absolutely loved it. It was brilliant. It was entertaining. The fans were eating it up. This was absolutely great. We got MJF in the ring. He accepted he done a speech and he ran down. What was quite funny, he completely destroyed his former one of his school teachers, Mrs. Benedict, if I remember correctly. And he turned around and was saying that, about how he has ADD, attention deficit disorder, and he was saying, it's okay, and this got an ADD chant from the crowd, which was fantastic, and he was saying about how his teacher embarrassed him, and then she pulled him aside after one of the classes, and she said, "What do you want to be when you grow up?" And why do you lose concentration in my class? And he said, because all he can think about is pro wrestling. I want to, when I grow up, be a world champion. And she was just saying, like, it was not likely to ever happen. And he turned around and said, well, look at where I am. I'm world champion. He said, it seems that you've got your mathematical equations wrong, bitch, or something along those lines, which got a great pop. So yeah, Miss Benedict, you were wrong. So hush. But yeah, it was a good segment. He teased an encore. Everyone wanted an encore. One of the band members turned out to be Jungle Boy, Jack Perry. He and MJF got into it and were had to be held apart. The AEW Championship laying on the stage on its own. Sammy Guevara came out and picked up the championship and got in both men's faces, and he was teasing, saying he was going to be the next AEW World Champion. Whether we'll see that, I don't know. But Oyster Bay's supervisor, Joe Saladino, who presented MJF the key to Oyster Bay, got loud boos, etc., which was quite fun. But yeah, it was a fantastic segment, really entertaining. Again, MJF just delivering golden moment. But anyway, Sammy Guevara went to the ring, had a one-on-one match against Commander. This was a really good match, high flying. These two are very unique individuals in the ring. The things that they can do, there's only probably a small handful of people, others that can do that. Guevara used his go to hell to pick up the victory, but it was the promo from Guevara towards MJF that was absolutely brilliant, saying that he promises he would never leave AEW because it's given him so much. He's not going to use the company to go anywhere else, do it something else, and he just won't sit back and let MJF do the company any harm. And there's no doubt that Guevara over the last couple of months and that has been really, really good. We could see him main eventing and challenging for the AEW Championship. There's nothing wrong with that. I do think he's getting better at a point where Guevara needs to step up his game and needs to be more than Tanara's partner, but a husband and things like that, and focusing more on the vlogs and all this, and the heat that he was getting through stuff like that, because Guevara has something, and if he can deliver and improve even more on what he's been doing for the past month or two, then I'm all for it, and I think that could be a very, very positive and interesting thing to see develop. And I wouldn't mind seeing MJF versus Sammy Guevara with the title on the line. Definitely, for me as a big Adam Cole fan, obviously ultimately I want to see that match happen. But even if Guevara comes up short against MJF, I'd still like to see the match happen. So it'll be interesting to see where we go with Guevara from here. But next up, we had the FTW Championship on the line at Hook against Ethan Page. Now, this has been going on for about a few weeks, a month or so. The match, we ended up having Hook making Page tap out. It wasn't really noteworthy in the match. It was okay. it just, for me, just didn't seem overly important or significant for me. It was followed by a backstage segment with Nigel McGuinness, who's just joined All Elite. And he was joined with Tony Khan, and they made the announcement about AEW's All In taking place at Wembley Stadium on August 27th. And obviously, as we know, it's been all over social media this past week. You know, it will be the first time Wembley's hosted a huge main wrestling event for 30 years. So, which was SummerSlam. So, in 1992. So, yeah, that will be. That's obviously going to sell out. I hope I manage to pick up tickets. If anyone can hook me and Andy up or whatever, then we'll be forever grateful. But we're going to try and hopefully get to be there to experience it. But we will see. We've got this segment net with Blackpool Combat Club, Brian Danielson, John Moxley, Willie Utah, Claudio Castagnoli going to the ring. Claudio, Wheeler, and Mox had a 6-man tag against. I can't even remember if they even gave the other team names. Though there might have just been local guys. It was a squash match. Didn't mean anything, but it was all set up for a Brian Danielson promo. He kept calling everyone else amateurs, saying that he's a pro wrestler. Willie Utah's a pro wrestler. John Moxley's a pro wrestler. Claudio Castagnoli is a pro wrestler. They're real pro wrestlers. Everyone else are just amateurs. You know, it was mainly a lot of repetition of what Brian Danielson was saying. A lot of it was, but it was to the point and it got the heat. We ended up with Hangman Adam Page coming out to the ring, maybe stupidly so, just went in on his own to attack the BBC, but obviously, you know, they got the better of him. What was quite brutal was that Brian Danielson pulled out a screwdriver and was talking about at home he's been teaching the kids how to fix up the home when things are broken, etc. And then he proceeded to attack Hangman Adam Page with the screwdriver. And it was just it got a lot of heat. It did what I think it needed to do. I think the ultimate game here is to end up having the BBC versus the Elite. It may headline Double or Nothing. Wouldn't surprise me. I think that's what they're heading for. I think Dynamite next week will explain more of what's going on now. It was a really good segment. Brian Danielson, brilliant on the mic. The way he carried himself, and like I said, although it was repetitive in places, I got to the point, and it was very, very well delivered. But what was very important was the main event, the AEW World Tag Team Championships on the line. The reigning champions, the Guns, Colton and Austin Gunn versus FTR, Cash Wheeler and Dax Harwood. Now, this was championship on the line, but also FTR's AEW careers on the line. If FTR lost, they would be out of AEW for good. This was, again, a very solid tag team match. The crowd were eating it up. It got to the point where, as the match was going on, that the Guns, I think they come to realise that they were really struggling to be able to beat their challengers. So they tried to get themselves disqualified deliberately, but the match officials not having any of it. So they had no choice but to, keep trying to do their absolute best. But it came down to FTR sealing the victory, picking up the AEW World Tag Team Championship once again, and their careers in AEW are safe. This is also off the back of Dax Harwood speaking about how he and Cash Wheeler weren't ever likely really to have returned to WWE. You know, we've seen over the last sort of few months a lot of teasing that FTR could end up back in WWE. Dax Harwood, you know, pretty much squashing that off the back of this tag team championship win. So so a pretty solid AEW show. A couple of very, very good moments, like I said, mainly highlighted by MJF and Bryan Danielson's promos. Absolutely. But then we're going to move on now to stick with AEW to Rampage. The matches on here, starting off with Hook and Ethan Page. Again, Hook again picking up the win. We had tables, we had chairs in this match. Matt Hardy even hit Hook with a twist of fate at one point. Hook also managed to counter Ethan's Page's edge into the red rum to score the submission victory in the end. A little bit of hardcore element brought to the match. Definitely the most different type of match that Hook's had so far in his career. But he put Ethan Page for a table, which got him a great pop as well. So it was an interesting, entertaining start to Rampage. We then ended up with the Infantry, Bobby Orlando and LSG versus the Acclaimed, Danny Magic and Cool Hand Ang. The Acclaimed and JAS winning the match. Again, it was to recruit the Acclaimed to Jericho Appreciation Society. It was while they were celebrating the match, Jake Hager, Parker and Menard pulled a sneak attack and took out the former AEW Tag Team Champions. So it wasn't really, I don't think it wasn't really about the match, etc. You know, it was more about getting the attack in and trying to make a statement. It is what it is. Just nothing really significant about this. But we did have Darby Allin versus Lee Moriarty. This was much better. We had Big Morrissey coming out with Moriarty, but no one else in their stable, their faction, their group, whatever you want to call them, was sitting at ringside. Sting wasn't present, that was interesting. It was a very technical type of match. A lot of counters, holds, takedowns, a proper wrestling match between the two of them. And Moriarty, throwing in a lot of strikes into the match. So it was good to see Moriarty being in the role of kind of like a powerhouse in the match. He had an opponent that he could definitely move around the ring with. They're definitely different styles between the two of these. Even though Big Morrissey, put in a little bit of interference, Moriarty suffered the coffin drop, and Allin picked up yet another win. It appears that he's heading or trying to head to a World Championship match against MJF. So I like the fact that we've got Jack Perry, Jungle Boy, we've got Sammy Guevara, we've got Darby Allin, these young guys, all trying to stake a claim for an opportunity for the AEW Championship. I love that approach that AEW seems to be happening. That's great. We had a women's contest match between Anna Jay and Julia Hart. Now this was the main event of the match. Now it's good to see Julia Hart wrestle because as we see, she's, for the most part, we're seeing her serve kind of in a managerial role, sort of valet for the House of Black since she's been with them. So seeing her back in wrestling in a match was really, really good to see. Tay Mello wasn't there with Anna like she usually would, so she had to go in alone. But it's been I think about a year, maybe just over, since she's really competed, Julia. So it was good that, at the start of the match, she went straight at Anna Jay, when the bell rang. But Anna regained her composure, took control of the match. She tried to use her advantage for height and power as much as she could in there. But it was good. I mean, there was moments there where you could see that they lacked in-ring chemistry, like they were alien to each other in the ring. But it was okay. But it was good because Julia Hart managed to get the win. Using the Black Mist to get that. So it's good to see Julia Hart back in the ring again. Excuse me. So, a really probably non-noteworthy episode of Rampage overall, but it was short, sweet, and as I said, really good to see Julia Hart back in the ring again. Now we're going to shift gears over this time because we are moving to the Impact Zone and we are covering now this week's Impact Wrestling. Now, kicking off with Motor City Machine Guns taking on TMDK. Now, again, very, very high-flying match between these two. There was a really good spot. Tito hit a standing blue thunderbomb on Chris Sabin, and then led up for a double team. There was a moment where Alex Shelley escaped and he put Tito in the corner. Chris Sabin Chris Sabin missile drop kicked Haste, and then planted Haste with a tornado DDT for a near fall. It looked like they might have nicked it at that point there. But there was a moment Alex Shelley held the ropes open for Chris Sabin to dive onto TMDK. We had all four in the ring, like breaking down in the ring, ending up on the mat. But Sabin managed to flip Tito over, and the Guns managed to double team Haste and then Tito before Shelley crucifix planted Haste and Sabin floated over for the 3 count. So Motor City Machine Guns picking up the victory on there. We saw after the match a backstage segment where the Guns actually walked into Bullet Club, which teased kind of another shot here where Chris Sabin has said about, they've got a rematch and they want to up the ante and they want to make it an Ultimate X match. So that has the potential to be a absolutely stellar match when we get to see that. Edwards saw King in the locker room. He wanted to make sure that he had his back against PCO. There was a bit of sarcasm there from King. He turned Eddie down because of what went down at Sacrifice. Tommy Dreamer found Scott D'Amore. Said he was serious about having him on his team at Rebellion. Scott said he was past that, but Dreamer pitched the idea onto him. This segment ended up leading into an X Division number 1 contenders match between Jonathan Gresham and Mike Bailey. Now, there was a test of strength, as you would expect from these guys. Gresham, there was a moment where Gresham flew into the ring, but he tied Bailey up with an octopus attempt. Bailey planted Gresham into a cover for a near fall, and then Gresham put on the figure 4 leg lock. Bailey flipped over to apply the pressure, but then got flipped back. There was a segment where it led to them rolling to the outside of the ring, which broke the lock up. We saw a spot where Bailey did a beautiful moonsault out of the ring. They just kept fighting and fighting and fighting. In the end, we ended up with it being a draw. So no contest. Trey got hold of his spray paint, but ended up with the others retreating, and the design decided to have a conversation on the stairs. Dino has said he was surprised about how Sammy had made it this far. Sammy said he was ready for step 7, which is where he learned about to eliminate all other authority in his life. Then we saw Bailey and Gresham arguing with Santino when Trey walked up. Santino booked the 3-way elimination match for Rebellion. So looking forward to that one. Next up, we saw Jody Threat versus Tara Rising, or Tara Rising if you're in England. It's how we pronounce Tara or Tara, depending on which side of the pond you're on. This match was won by Jody Threat. She won with the F416 for the win. There was some good clothesline and a running knee into the ropes, followed by a lovely release German suplex. Backstage, we saw Dango and the medics check on Santino when D'Amore came up. Dango said it was the design. Dango said that he thinks he's in charge now, but D'Amore said he wasn't buying it. Dango wanted the design. Santino came in and said about this, it's an opportunity to educate his son at Rebellion. Santino said he has to remind people who he is. Santino, Dango, and Hendry versus the design for at Rebellion is going to happen. That was booked. So we're going to see that match. We saw Tasha Steelz backstage with Gia Miller. Steelz has said that she went home to find herself. Giselle Shaw and her posse get interrupted. Still says she had no problem whooping her next week. And Giselle said that she thought Tasha had bitten off more than she can chew. So we're going to get Giselle and Tasha coming up. We had Bully Ray in good hands versus Darren McCarty, Yuya Uemura, and Tommy Dreamer. Again, I mean, it was an okay match, but it was McCarty who hit a stunner for a win. So McCarty, Uemura, and Dreamer got the victory on that. Kelly King ran in at the end and joined the heels, as did Masha Slamovich. Killer Kelly and Kazarian ran in to neutralize them as there was a bit of a standoff. Then we ended up having a look into Josh Alexander's historic world title reign. And also there was a congratulatory segment with Jordan Grace for her winning a bodybuilding competition this past weekend. The next match we had up was Eddie Edwards versus PCO. Just before that, we had a segment with Deonna Purrazzo. It was a recap with Deonna Purrazzo winning the Fatal 4-Way match at Multiverse, so United. Deonna saying that the last 18 months for her have been a roller coaster. She went from a world tag team champion with her best friend to absolutely nothing. And then she said she built the age of Virtuoso upon arrival. She wants to prepare for the title match at Rebellion, but she's ready. And Deonna said Jordan Grace has never beaten her, while she has never beaten Mickie James. Deonna says she will become a 3-time champ, so we'll see what happens there. So Eddie Edwards versus PCO. Literally once the bell rang, they went straight at it. There was a lovely spot of PCO of chops from Eddie on PCO. There was a massive series of chops between the two. In the end, we ended up seeing PCO running into the referee. PCO hit a reverse DDT, and then as he went up top, Alicia ran down. Alicia whacked PCO in the head with a kendo stick, and then Eddie hit the buckle bomb and a Boston knee party for the win. PCO then chased the couple backstage and out, and they ended up Eddie and Alicia ended up escaping in their car. We found out that scheduled for next week on Impact, we're going to see Giselle Shaw versus Tasha Steelz. We're going to see Jessica versus Taylor Wilde, Callahan and Angels versus Dango and Hendry, and King versus Kazarian for the Hardcore War advantage. The final part of Impact was a sad occasion. Impact champion Josh Alexander had to relinquish his world championship. He was in Scott D'Amore was in the ring with Kushida and Steve Macklin. Scott D'Amore said that every ending leads to a new beginning, and a new champion will be crowned at Rebellion. Josh Alexander came out with his wife and son. Josh Alexander got a wonderful standing ovation. He thanked everybody for that, and he reflected on what he had to do to reach the pinnacle of Impact. He remembers winning his first contract with Impact, becoming the longest reigning Impact World Champion of all time. Wonderful pop. He spoke about how he's torn his tricep and he's out indefinitely, and he now gets to go back to just being a fan, just like his son. And he said he'll be watching Rebellion 2 becomes the next champion. Josh turned around and said that Kushida is one of the most ruthless wrestlers in the world, and that he can make Macklin tap out. He turns to Macklin and says he's earned his title shot, but he wishes it was against him. Warned both of them that if they hold it long enough, he'll be coming back to reclaim what's his. There was massive thank you, Josh chants from the crowd. They were so over that. There was this really cute, heartbreaking moment where Josh's son ran and over and grabbed the title belt and held it close, like he didn't want it to be let go, bless him. And Josh went over and to his son and took the title, spoke to him and took the title, and he handed it over to Scott. Then Macklin then turned around and said that the formality was done. He wants Scott to hand him the title. Macklin says this is Josh's way out. Scott Dumore gets angry and can't believe Macklin would even try to taunt Josh into a fight fresh off of surgery. Scott said that Macklin should have answered an open challenge or stepped up to the champ man-to-man, but instead he's just nothing but a coward. Scott said that he's supposed to be unbiased and that he and can't right now. Scott reminds everyone that Kushida made Macklin tap out just a couple of weeks ago. Macklin then turned around and made the point of saying that he wouldn't put his pride on the line in a match that doesn't mean anything. Kushida stepped up to Macklin as Macklin declared himself the next champion. Macklin tells Kushida to enjoy the spotlight while it lasts, and Kushida then proceeded to drop Macklin with a hoverboard lock, and then dived out to Macklin, who tried taking off with the title. And we were left Impact with Kushida raising the title in the ring, and we're starting to get ready for Rebellion. So that is a quick round on what happened on Impact. Apologise for the way I presented it to these. I had very little time to type things out, the key points out, so I was in a bit of a rush. But you get the gist of what's happened there. Finally, what we are going to discuss now is New Japan Genesis took place, and it was headlined by Kazuchika Okada versus Sonata. That was the headlining match. There was 5 championship matches for the whole event. We had the Shinichi Champion Grand Prix celebration 6-man tag match. Toru Yano, Great Khan, Minoru Suzuki. They defeated Hiroshi Tanahashi, Yo, and El Desperado. A really, really good opening match this was. Obviously it was a bit of a strange lineup. That was part of the stipulation. Faction mates stood apart from one another and were partnering with long-term rivals. That's a really good concept as well. That's something we don't see very often. Kind of reminds me of the old wild card style matches as well, when anyone could be paired with anyone, and you have friends being on opposite teams and being partnered with opponents and and people they feud with. I really enjoyed that. Neither team wanting to really get the tags in. We saw Okan and Yo. They were fighting each other for a good while alone, on their own. Tanahashi forced his way into the match, building up the momentum for his team, to the point where Okan was desperate to get his tag, but none of all of his partners refused to get the tag in. But after a little while, Yano tagged into the match, and Okan and Suzuki were left to fight each other. And poor Yano was left in a 3-on-1 conflict, and then just chaos. Yano hit Tanahashi with a low blow, rolled him up to win the match. It was a very different but yet very entertaining start to the show. So a bit unorthodox, but a really cool concept nonetheless. I really enjoyed that. We ended up next having United Empire, which was Aaron Hanaya, Francesco Akari, and Jeff Cobb against the House of Torture, Evil Show, and Yujiro Takahashi. Now, this started off kind of with a bit of a brawl. We had Shot and Akira in the ring fighting for control. Show gained full advantage. And then once Cobb got the tag in, Cobb got the tag in for United Empire, and House of Torture. They were trying to use the numbers advantage to try and take control back into the match. Show distracted the referee with the wrench he uses. Dick Togo had the opportunity then to hit the ring with his cord, and while being choked by Togo, Cod stood up, grabbed Show, dropped him with Tour of the Islands with Togo on his back, and Cod pinned Show and secured the win for United Empire. We saw then after the match that Akira accepted a challenge from Kushida, and Owen Kevin Knight's challenge for the junior tag titles. And then next up, we had Just Five Guys, Uki, Taichi, Yoshinobu, and Kinomaru. They went up against Los Ingoda Bonobos de Japan, Bushi, Shingo Takagi, and Tetsuya Naito. And it was Naito that ended up starting off the match. He really went at Duki. Leach found out, excuse me, Los Ingoda de Japan, they were fighting with kind of like a bit of animosity towards Just Five Guys. There was this extended sequence of control that they had. There was a double tag between Taichi and Shingo where they traded heavy blows. Bushi continued to keep fighting after the tag in to handle Kenomaru. He was then able to turn things around. He locked on a figure four lock, which was dead center in the ring. And then as the rest of Los Ingobernables de Japan, it's really a mouthful to say that one. I do apologise. They tried to make it safe, but Just Five Guys caught them all in their other holds and protected Bushi long enough for him to secure the win. When the bell had rang for the end of the match, Duki held Naito in the Duki Choki for quite a period of time, which forced the crew at ringside to come in and help break the hold. And then Duki later challenged Naito for a singles match. Next up, we have Bullet Club, made up of Dave Finlay, El Phantasmo, and Kenta, taking on Hikuelu, Tamatonga, and Master Rato. This Bullet Club stuff, it's been, 10 years or so, and we're seeing all these betrayals and everything. It never ends in the world of Bullet Club, does it? But gotta love a bit Bullet Club. Anyway, before the match started, there was a bit of a squabble between Dave Finlay and El Phantasma. Once the match started, it was down to Hikuelu and Tamatonga and that to take control. Bullet Club tried and successfully took the lead, but they failed to capitalise. And then El Phantasma and Finlay again continuing to argue. They traded tags, which were more like pretty much hitting each other with chops. And even though there was the dysfunction between them, El Phantasmo was still able to drop Vato with sudden death and a CR2. Once the match had ended, Finlay dropped Tamatonga with the Never Championship. And then as Finlay was beating Tamadan, El Phantasmo actually tried to pull him off. Finlay then dropped El Phantasmo with a forearm, leading to a strike exchange. And then after being pulled apart, El Phantasmo removed his Bullet Club gear. Kenta, who was kind of trying to be a peacemaker, roll up to this point, dropped El Phantasma with a GTS. So after Kenta, after what Kenta did, he and Guido presented El Phantasma to Finlay, who had his shillelagh in his hand. Teiji Ishimori hit the ring to make an apparent save, but instead he dropped El Phantasma with a low blow. Ishimori then helped Finlay deliver a shillelagh strike, which basically ended the world's cutest tag team and El Phantasma's involvement in Bullet Club. So that kind of puts an ending, an exclamation mark to the whole point that since he's arrived, El Phantasma has always been on about questioning Dave Finlay's authority, it's just that appears to have come to an end at that point. So that's the drama never ends with Bullet Club. Like I said, it never ends with Bullet Club. Anyway, next up was the IWGP Women's Championship match. The champion Mercedes Moné against Hazuki and AZM. Now, started off a very equal start off. Everyone managing to get their fair share of involvement. There was kind of an arrangement between Mercedes Moné and ASM to kind of have a agreement, like an alignment, if you would, to take care of Hazuki to get her out. But Hazuki ended up taking control of both AZM and Mercedes Moné. But after her sequence of control, pretty much, it then turned into a kind of like a dive city. There were these different series of dives where which then led to all three of them training submissions, trying to get the quick pin. But it was fast paced. It was one thing after the other. They all were mixing up quite equally for the most part. Mercedes Moné eventually hit a pair of code breakers and a Meteora for a near fall over AZM. AZM replied also by scoring a near fall of her own with quick trapping pin before Hazuki then fought back into the match with a series of strikes of her own. We then saw Hazuki appearing to try and end the match with a brainbuster, but AZM jumped into the ring, hit her to interrupt. So instead of securing a pin, which is what she tried to do, AZM was caught by Mercedes Moné. Mercedes Moné then dropped AZM onto Hazuki with the moneymaker, winning the match, and it's a successful title defense for Mercedes Moné, the former Sasha Banks. When the match finished, Mayu Iwatani, she made her way to the ring and dropped a challenge to Mercedes Moné for the Women's Championship, and Mercedes Moné responded simply with a slap to the face. So the women's division there in New Japan hotting up, but further on we had the New Japan World Television Championship match. It was Zack Sabre Jr. defending against Shota Umino. Lots of quick pins to start off the match, quick pin attempts. And then sort of like the pace settled down a little bit. A lot of uppercuts, a lot of intensity from Imuno. He got a lot of control, working away on the leg of Zack Sabre Jr. Zack Sabre Jr. Managed to catch Shota with an armbar, which forced him into the ropes. He, in turn, then started to work on Shota's arm. So that led to Zack Sabre Jr. dominating for a little while. Then once Shota managed to escape an armbar, he tried another rally, different quick pins, a swinging DDT and the Death Rider, almost getting the win for Shota with a real near fall towards the end of the match. He tried for another Death Rider, but Zack Sabre Jr. managed to reverse it into a pin, winning the match. It was a really entertaining match between these two. but very, very brilliantly paced match between the two of them. The IWGP Tag Team Championship on the line. Aussie Open taking on Bishamon for the tag titles. Excuse me. Aussie Open starting the match. They isolated Yoshihashi. Once Goto managed to tag in, Aussie Open maintained their control. There was lots of huge dives onto the outside. Bishamon was put on the back foot. We ended up with Yoshihashi eventually managing to launch a rally, but Fletcher and Davis just kept on the same page with their teamwork. And there was one point where Fletcher was actually busted open, but he managed to fight on after they managed to tape up his head. I don't know if there was any other assistance done to his head, but his head was definitely taped up. Once Goto managed to get tagged into the match, he tried to gain control for his team. He sent Davis out to the floor. Goto dropped Fletcher with a lariat and a backdrop. Yoshihashi hit the ring, helped Goto really close, but Fletcher escaped. Goto persisted, dropping Fletcher with a GYW, but Davis was able to make the save. So following that other save from Davis, it allowed Fletcher to score a really near fall late on. Cleared the ring of Yoshihashi. Aussie Open hit a double lariat, then sandwiching lariat to Goto, who was able to close out the match for Aussie Open, winning them the match and the IWGP Tag Team Championships. We'll move on because we're on time constraints now. IWGP Junior Heavyweight Championship. Hiromu Takahashi defended his championship against Robbie Eagles. Back and forth on this one as well. We ended up having a point where there was a moment that forced both of them into a corner. Ended up with a Poison Rana and a 450 to Hiromu's knee. After landing the splash, Eagles locked in the Rob Miller special. Hiromu barely escaped at that point, but there was a brief pause in the match where Hiromu was able to land Dynamite Plunger and Time Bomb to win the match. Excuse me. So Robbie Eagles close, but not close enough. I do apologise. I'm a bit thrown up. I've got what I call like an itch in my throat. It's distracting me at the moment. But we're going to move on because we need to wrap this up. Sanada defeated Kazuchika Okada to win the IWGP World Heavyweight Championship. It was a traditional collar and elbow tie-up. The match continued to start things off. The match continued. It went away on the outside. Sanada dropping Okada onto the concrete with barricade-assisted DDT. Looked quite brutal. Once back in the ring, Sanada managed to take control for quite a while of the match. There was a beautiful flapjack to Sanada, which allowed Okada to fight and take the lead into the match. A dropkick from Okada, which sent Sanada crashing to the floor, where he returned to the concrete DDT and then Sanada was quick to fight back after returning to the ring. A quick drop kick to Okada left Sanada a step ahead. The match wandered back outside again, leading to a Sanada dive. Okada tried hitting his finisher, which Sanada managed to escape. He then challenged Okada to a strike exchange. Okada then ended that strike exchange with a drop kick, but Sanada reversed the Rainmaker into a cutter and a pair of moonsaults for a near fall. Okada tried for a landslide, but Sanada turned it into a choke. And then once after he took advantage again, Sanada landed a Shining Wizard, but failed to capitalize on a follow-up. And then once he escaped yet another finish attempt, Okada tried yet again for the Rainmaker. This time, Sanada reversed the Rainmaker into deadfall. After landing a swinging DDT variation, Sanada then pinned Okada to win the belt for the very first time in his career. And then during Sanada's victory speech, Hiroomi walked to the ring. He congratulated Sanada for his win before challenging him for the IWGP World Heavyweight Championship. Kanemaru asked Homura for a junior title shot before Hiroomi got a chance to challenge for the heavyweight title. Sanada then closed the show with his promo and a shower of confetti. And that was Genesis. So my apologies for the ending of that. Getting really trying. I'm trying to rush a little bit because I've got things to do and I'm getting this thing at the back of my throat. But that has been the recap of what has gone on in WWE, AEW, Impact, and New Japan this past week. Let us know what your thoughts are on this past week, and that we have got we've got our show live on Tuesday from 7 p.m. I'll be joined by my co-host as ever, Andy Evans, where we will be talking all the latest news and what's gone on in WWE and AEW and Impact. Remember, send us your messages. Let us know what you think. Remember how you can contact us on WhatsApp, on Instagram, on Twitch, on Facebook. You can email us. Don't forget, if you don't already, you can follow us on Apple Podcasts. You can get us also on Spotify, or you can just like and subscribe on our YouTube channel, and you can follow our Facebook page as well. And I will see you with Andy on Tuesday evening live from 7 p.m. So until then, thank you very much for joining me. This is a first, so I apologise if it's been a bit rough around the edges, but we'll get used to it. But until then, I hope you all have a cracking weekend, and Andy and I will catch you on Tuesday evening. So until then, stay safe, enjoy your wrestling, and we'll see you Tuesday. Goodbye.